New York City is known as the city that never sleeps, a beacon of opportunity and dreams. But beneath the towering skyscrapers and bright lights lies a growing crisis: homelessness. Today we're diving deep into the causes, struggles, and potential solutions for the thousands of people living on the streets or in shelters across the 5 boroughs. The scope of the problem. As of the latest reports, nearly 70,000 people in New York City are homeless on any given night. That includes over 22,000 children. This makes NYC's homeless population the largest in the United States. The crisis is not just visible, it's systemic. Touching every corner of the city, the roots of this crisis stretch back decades. In the 1980s, the city saw a sharp rise in homelessness, partly due to the deinstitutionalization of mental health facilities and a lack of affordable housing. Fast forward to today, and those issues remain, compounded by economic inequality and skyrocketing rent prices. During that time, government funding for mental health facilities was cut drastically. Thousands of people with untreated mental health conditions were released onto the streets with little support. Unfortunately, this is still a problem today, as many of these individuals find themselves trapped in shelters or on the streets. Who are the homeless? When we talk about homelessness, it's easy to make assumptions. But the truth is, there's no one-size-fits-all story. Families, veterans, the elderly, and even employed individuals make up this population. Many people assume that homelessness is a result of addiction or criminal activity, but that's only part of the picture. Many of those who are homeless are simply struggling with economic hardship or unexpected life changes. People who lose their jobs or experience a sudden medical crisis often find themselves unable to keep up with rent, pushing them into homelessness. I never thought I would end up in a shelter. One minute I was living a normal life with a job, and the next I lost everything. It was a combination of things: medical bills, then losing my job, and before I knew it, I couldn't pay my rent. I never thought I'd be here. This highlights the fragile nature of stability for many. Homelessness doesn't only affect those without jobs, it can happen to anyone, anytime, with the right set of circumstances. Migration and homelessness in New York City. Migrants have long been a part of New York City's identity, with the city welcoming people from all over the world. However, in recent years, an increasing number of migrants arriving in the city have found themselves facing homelessness, compounding the city's existing crisis. Many of these migrants arrive with hopes of finding better opportunities, but often lack the resources, housing, and support systems they need. For some, the transition is easier than others, but for many, the sudden arrival in a city with already limited affordable housing means they end up on the streets or in temporary shelters. In 2022 and 2023, New York City saw a significant increase in migrants arriving from places like South America, particularly Venezuela, as well as asylum seekers from Africa and other regions. While the city offers emergency shelter, the system is overwhelmed, and these individuals often struggle to access the resources they need to find stable housing and employment. Immigration advocate. Many migrants arrive with legal status but face tremendous hurdles: language barriers, lack of job opportunities, and the complex paperwork needed to settle in the city. Without support, many find themselves homeless or living in overcrowded shelters for extended periods. The surge in migrant arrivals has added additional strain to an already stretched shelter system. While the city government and nonprofit organizations are working to provide relief, the housing crisis in New York is reaching a tipping point. Affordable housing for everyone, regardless of their immigration status, remains a top concern. Local organizations, such as the Legal Aid Society and Immigrant Justice Corps, are stepping up to provide legal support, housing referrals, and other services to help migrants navigate their new lives. These community-driven efforts are essential in ensuring that migration doesn't add to the cycle of homelessness, but instead helps people integrate into society and find stability. The intersection of migration and homelessness is a reminder of how interconnected these issues are. As New York City continues to grow, we must ensure that no one is left behind, regardless of where they come from. Factors driving homelessness. At the heart of this crisis lies one major issue: affordability. The average rent for a one-bedroom apartment in Manhattan is over $4,000. Meanwhile, the minimum wage in New York is $15 an hour, far below what's needed to afford even a modest living space. Many people are paying a huge portion of their income on rent, leaving them with little to cover other essentials like food, healthcare, or transportation. When unexpected expenses arise, there's nothing left to fall back on. Meanwhile, there's been an explosion of luxury real estate development, with high-end condos and apartments cropping up in neighborhoods across the city. But affordable housing is still in short supply. The waiting list for public housing can stretch for years, and even then, the available units are often inadequate. Housing advocate. Affordable housing is a critical need. People are being pushed out of their homes as rent prices soar, and at the same time, the government is not keeping up with the demand for low-income housing. It's a perfect storm of poverty and poor policy. Challenges faced by the homeless. Being homeless in New York City comes with unimaginable hardships. Harsh winters, the constant threat of violence, and the stigma of being unhoused create daily struggles. The physical dangers of homelessness are often overlooked. Winters in New York can be deadly, with freezing temperatures and snowstorms making survival almost impossible without proper shelter. Many people are forced to take shelter in subway stations, parks, or under bridges, all while battling the mental toll of living without stability. Social worker. One of the biggest struggles for homeless individuals is the lack of access to basic necessities: food, warmth, hygiene, and safety. Shelters, while crucial, can often be overcrowded and lack proper resources. And that's just the beginning of the challenge. The emotional and psychological toll can be just as damaging. The stigma that comes with homelessness often makes it harder for people to seek help. Many face prejudice or are treated with suspicion, further isolating them from the support they need. Efforts and solutions. So what's being done to tackle this crisis? The city has invested billions in shelter systems and outreach programs, but it's not enough. Advocates argue that a focus on permanent solutions, like affordable housing and mental health services, is crucial. New York City has introduced several initiatives, including the Turning the Tide program, which aims to provide permanent supportive housing to the homeless, particularly those with mental health or substance use disorders. However, critics argue that these efforts don't go far enough in addressing the root causes of homelessness, like the lack of affordable housing. Urban planner. We need a major shift in how we approach housing in New York. It's not enough to just provide temporary shelters. We need to build more affordable housing, support mental health services, and invest in prevention programs to stop homelessness before it starts. The key to solving homelessness is creating a robust safety net for people before they reach the point of living on the streets. It's about long-term solutions, not just short-term fixes. How you can help. It's easy to feel helpless in the face of such a massive issue, but small actions can add up. Volunteering at local shelters, donating to trusted organizations, or even advocating for policy changes can make a tangible impact. Organizations like the Coalition for the Homeless, Bowery Mission, and Project Renewal are doing incredible work every day to support those in need. And you don't have to wait for the government to act. Your involvement can make a difference. Even something as simple as serving a hot meal or providing a blanket can help someone in need feel seen and supported. The more we come together as a community, the more change we can create. Homelessness in New York City is a crisis of humanity, economics, and policy. It's not a problem that can be solved overnight, but with collective action, empathy, and smart policy changes, we can create a city where everyone has a place to call home. Thank you for joining me in exploring this complex issue. Remember, no one is truly homeless as long as we care for each other. Let's be the change we want to see.